Hi everyone, this is Beth Barling from Beth Barling Wellness, and I wanted to come in here today and talk a little bit about expression. So a couple of things happened in the past few weeks that are making me think about how important it is to consider our expression. So in yogic philosophy, our expression is part of our throat chakra, primarily. It's, all things are all places. But our throat chakra is about speaking, listening, and there's a piece about the creativity, moving your creativity into the world, processing things. So the throat chakra is this beautiful chakra, and a lot of times the yogis that I work with, their throat chakra is the one that they want to work on the most, because sometimes it's hard to take all of this work that we're doing and bring it out into the world, to really possess the work that we're doing and present it to the world, to first of all show up in our lives, and additionally to be a beacon of light and a way shower for other people who are having trouble as well expressing themselves. So expression is a great thing you can work on with the throat chakra, and I'll get into a couple of tips there. And it's coming in more and more as an important part of our journeys. Especially when we consider, the feminine, when we consider, there's the masculine side of us and our feminine side of us, all things in balance. And this isn't about men and women because, once again, men and women each have masculine and feminine. And the feminine has been subdued for a very long time. And that's for men and women. So both parties haven't been able to express their feminine as freely. There are many gorgeous humans in this world that, do express their feminine, but oftentimes in mainstream society and cultures, it's not championed. The different qualities of the feminine are not championed. So what does that mean? So, well, if we look back in the Soul Magic Garden, we've been talking a lot about magic. So this month, October 2020, if you're watching this later, but during the month of October 2020, when the veil is super thin leading up to Samhain, we did an entire month we're doing an entire month of magic in our yoga classes. And we're considering different goddesses each week. So the first week we did the Morrigan. And the Morrigan is this gorgeous goddess who has these roots, is a Celtic goddess, Celtic and surrounding areas, who has her roots trace back to the Bronze Age. That's how far back we can see sculptures of the Morrigan. So she's associated with blackbirds, crows. She has enormous breasts. She is, I don't know if they're enormous. I imagine them as enormous. But she is this transformational goddess. So she's about giving life and she's about death. So she's both stages, and she's also about maintaining life. So here's this gorgeous goddess that is helping to birth things into the world. She's an earth goddess. She's the great mother goddess. And her boobs are full of this elixir, this life-giving milk that sustains us throughout life. And again, gorgeous, right? This gorgeous idea of the feminine. We don't talk about this gorgeous life-giving elixir that women carry around in their breasts. And men also have life-giving elixir in a variety of different fashions, but how they nurture and sustain their own children. That's their own feminine expression. But this gorgeous goddess goes from this goddess who's there at your birth, this goddess who sustains your life, and this goddess who is there when you die. And isn't that what makes life so sacred and so gorgeous, is the breath of it. That we've only have a short walk here in this earthly journey, and that's what makes it gorgeous. We're not here forever. We are here in this earthly incarnation for a brief period of time, a small breath, a small window. And she's there when we're born, and she is there to help us transition when we die, or she's there to sustain life. So there's this gorgeous goddess who's doing all these amazing things. And there's a lot of different stories about the Morrigan, and if you are really well versed in the Morrigan, drop me a comment and give me some stories about the Morrigan. because I'm only newly working with her. But she was a huge part of why I wanted to talk about feminine expression, because she becomes this fearful entity. And in fairness, she is a fearful entity. She is a strong entity. Imagine having that kind of power. And she becomes this goddess of war, and she becomes this goddess who chooses sides in a battle. She's not the goddess of killing, she's the goddess of death. So she's not actually killing people, but is she? How do we pray to the Morrigan in a patriarchal society? Did we pray to the Morrigan to win battles? Did we pray to the Morrigan to slaughter our enemies? If we don't honor the Morrigan, does she decimate us in battle? So she becomes this patriarchal, like, embodiment. And she has masculine and feminine, of course, but we focus more on this, the wartime aspect of who the Morrigan is, and we lose a little bit of the feminine, who she is. She has she's this gorgeous goddess of life, death, and the sustenance of life. But it's easier to find stories about her being a wartime goddess. And we could go on, but I wanted to move into this a little more. And then we talked a little bit about Sige. So Sige is a Gnostic goddess. So she is the first divine feminine in Gnostic thought, and she has a male counterpart, all things in balance, and together her and her male counterpart birth will and thought. And it is said that all wisdom springs forth from Sige. And wisdom is Sophos in Greek, Sophia. So she is this mother. She is the first feminine. And her, funny, I'm talking about expression, but I found her to be so critical in our journey because she's about silence. So Sige is all about silence, about what we can learn in the silence. And that's a huge part of expression, because when we're talking and talking and talking, we're not listening. And silence is a really good opportunity to receive. It's a good opportunity to contemplate. She's also the goddess, it's silence, it's contemplation, and of her is birthed will, and our thought, and our wisdom. So it's important to be silent, and that's the other side of our expression of our third chakra, is not just to speak and to express, but to receive the world's expression. And the mirror is, the world is our mirror. The world is a reflection of us. So it's really important to express, and then it's important to receive, all things in balance, always. And it's important to contemplate. It's important to really process these things. And that's being in the quiet, being in the dark, being in silence. These are, gorgeous feminine qualities. And I find we don't prize that enough in my culture and society, the society I was raised in gorgeous Northeast America, super, super busy, and gorgeous in so many ways, but not a lot of space for silence and contemplation. I think that in my corporate career, I spent, I would say, a solid 5 years falling asleep in my work clothes, oftentimes on top of my laptop. So silence has been, restorative for me. It has been regenerative for me. It has been healing. And it's often really difficult. It's more difficult to sit in silence than it is often to speak. So again, pulling that feminine quality back in as part of your expression. So that was the lesson I learned from Sige this month. And then we come to Freya. So Freya, I feel like she is the goddess of expression. So Freya is this gorgeous Norse Viking goddess, and she is the goddess of sex. She is the goddess of war. She is the goddess of love and fertility. And I have another video, I have a couple other YouTube videos going more into Freya and more into Sige. I didn't do the Morrigan on YouTube. I did her exclusively in Soul Magic Garden. But Freya is this, God, what a gorgeous example of expression, of feminine expression. So, I often see t-shirts about Freya that say, if you can't slay them, she's a warrior, she's a warrior. If you can't slay them, lay them. And I'm like, I'm not really sure how I feel about that shirt, but I'll let you decide. So she probably loves that shirt, if I'm being honest. But I think there's a negative connotation a little bit about what it means to be a warrior and to be a lover and to express our sexuality. oftentimes women especially expressing your sexuality isn't available to you unless it's in a patriarchal structure, in a confine. So a woman is allowed to have sex with her husband and only her husband. And this is so controversial. So I implore you to fight with me. If that is coming up, I won't fight back. I will just honor your thoughts and your messages. But for me, I find that we celebrate women who are virginal. We celebrate women who are faithful to their husbands. We celebrate women who, well, I don't know how much we celebrate women who just take care of their children. How do we feel about mothers? Do we celebrate mothers enough for their job? I'm going to leave that one out there. But then there's an alternative perspective with men, that it is okay to be to sexually conquest. It's okay to have sex with many people. In wartime, and the patriarchy, this I hate to use the word patriarchy because now it's becoming very negative, and I think that all pieces of our existence have a time and a place and a story and a meaning and a lesson and a reason. But there's this thousands of years where the masculine has been uplifted, this battle cry masculine. And how many times are we hearing about rape and pillaging? It's a form of control. It's a form of conquest. It's a form of winning. It's I'm entitled to this because I am a hero and I won this battle. And even today we use sex as a weapon. For both men and women, we're only looking at a very masculine personification of what sex is. Now, if we look at men and women expressing themselves in their feminine, so are women allowed to say that I love having sex, I love this part of my journey, I love, and decide how they want to manage, decide if they want to even be monogamous, decide if they want to be with, who they want to be with, and, sexuality, our preferences and our identification, those things, these are all just coming to light now, and they're still, and that's an amazingly gorgeous thing, not that they're just coming to light now, that they've always been there, but I feel like there's been such a velocity of movement with these different sexual preferences, with our different communities that don't, live in that patriarchal structure of, I'm a man, I have one wife, she's only allowed to sleep with me so that I know who my children are, so that I know that my money stays in my lineage, I need her to be faithful. But that doesn't mean that I need to be faithful. There's an exception there. There's an exception to the rule. And I also think that that's an unfair, it's an unfair thing to put on a man as well, because a man needs to say, you know what, I don't want to rape somebody, or I don't think that sex is a form of control. I don't want to, even for a man to decide how he wants to be sexually, decide how he identifies, how he wants to behave sexually. And what I love about Freya is she probably has had sex with every god and goddess in the pantheon. And good for her, because she is the goddess of sex and love. And she just expresses herself. She expresses herself unapologetically. She just is who she is. She lives her life, and that's what she wants to do. And that doesn't mean everyone has to go out and have sex with everybody. It means to tap in and say, am I nurturing my sexuality? And vice versa, am I nurturing my warrior? There's a warrior aspect to this. There's a courageous aspect to this, to sort of fight for the life that you should be living, the life that your higher self and your divinity is asking you to step into. So that is one of the things I really love about Freya, is that she is unapologetically sexual. She does not care what Loki thinks of her. She does not care what anyone thinks of her. And she loves to adorn herself. She loves her jewels. She loves her Brishingham, and she loves to be gorgeous and beautiful. And she's the goddess of beauty. And by loving herself and nurturing herself and devoting herself to herself, on the alternative, that mirror side, that expression piece, Freya can see, because she can see the unbelievable beauty in herself, unbelievable sexual attraction, prowess, her gorgeous warrior, because she can see that all in herself, she can see that in the world. So when she meets you, she immediately loves you. She immediately thinks that you're absolutely gorgeous, no matter if you're an elf, a dwarf. She doesn't care who you are. She doesn't care if you are this decade's decision of what's hot and what's not. That means nothing to her, because she has this goddess energy, this purest form of self-love, self-worth, and self-worship, that she is completely able to see you for your worthiness, see you and love you, and love all people the way that they are. So that is a form of expression that's not often available to us. Am I allowed to wear makeup as a yogi? Is that okay? Am I allowed to brush my hair? Am I allowed to, or if I don't want to brush my hair, do I need to brush my hair and go to my corporate job? Probably. But this is a form of expression. It's not just about what we say. It's not just about what we speak and what we write. Expression is about how we show up in the world. It's about how I look, how I feel. It's about my rolling my eyes. It's about all the different pieces of me. And the more I love myself and the more I'm confident with who I am, the bigger I show up in the world, and the more I give you that availability. I give you that reason to show up in the world as your most gorgeous divine self. And again, there's no rules for that, because we're all perfectly perfect, unique and gorgeous. So Freya is gorgeous for expression. And this week, coming up next week, we're working on Hecate, because obviously we're working on Hecate for Samhain, the week of Samhain. And she is just an amazing goddess. She is a Greek goddess, and she is a witch. She's the goddess. She's the queen of the witches, and she is a way shower herself. She shines the light in the darkness. She is at the crossroads. She's there when you're making major decisions in your life. She is a very supportive and nurturing goddess in her darkness. And we even talk about that a little bit. All of these goddesses have light and dark, and the feminine has light and dark. But she's showing up in her darkness. She shows up there in the dark to support you in the dark. She knows how to be in the dark. She's the only goddess that I believe can go freely from the underworld back to our world. So she goes back and forth, and she is an absolutely gorgeous story. I'm just going to leave her as she is, because I haven't done enough work with her. I'm still preparing for her presentation for next week, but I assure you I'll follow up. But these are reasons I feel that have really woken me up to our feminine expression. And I don't know that personally I have spent a long part of my journey not trusting in my feminine expression. So what does that mean for me? What does that mean in the feminine? So there's linear thinking, and then there's the circular thinking. There's linear time. This is very masculine, holding the container, setting space. And the feminine is a little more circular. It's a little more, there is no time. Everything's happening at once. This is the infinite now, which is a bit of a heavy concept. But when we're expressing ourselves, when we are speaking our truth, when we are showing up to the world, when we are, even the way we dress is an expression of us. Every piece of us is an expression. Do we show up fully? And oftentimes when we think of linear living, there's rules to linear living. There's yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we're always in the present. And we're dealing with the things that have just recently happened. We're dealing with the things that are going to happen tomorrow, but we're in the present. So that allows us to only manage timely emotions. We have a short window to manage things, deal with things in the moment, deal with things in the moment. And emotions are a huge part of the feminine expression, and a huge piece of what men especially, and women, are not allowed to express. I think women are more comfortable in expressing their emotions, but I also think that there's a lot of ridicule and judgment for women who express emotions that they're not allowed to have, as designed by, mainstream culture and society. But if we don't look at our emotions and our patterns and our conditioning as part of our existence, if we are always living this linear life and keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward, then we're not addressing things that maybe happened even in our childhood that cause emotional trauma and emotional scars. So just stepping out of that linear mindset and just maybe taking a moment to say, I am available to discuss emotional trauma that happened to me as a child. I'm available to discuss emotional trauma that happened to me in my teens. I'm available to discuss with my husband something that happened 2 years ago that is still weighing heavily on my heart. And if the response is, this happened 2 years ago, how come you can't let it go, blah, 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 that's fine. And again, we're all on our own separate journeys. Or if you say that to your wife and your wife says it happened 2 years ago, I don't know why we can't move forward with this, because forgiving and forgetting is like, highest gorgeous thing, and it is a high gorgeous thing. But if we, if we don't unpack these things that happened years ago, they fester and they fester. And we create patterns and conditioning to stop us from experiencing those things again. So we're putting blockages on our hearts. We're putting blockages on our creation in our sacral chakra. We're putting blockages on our power center. We're putting all these blockages in place because we're not speaking our truth. We're not speaking our emotions. And, we do all things in love and we do all things in peace. That's perfectly fantastic. And maybe you're really angry, and maybe doing all things in love and doing all things in peace just really isn't going to resolve the issue. Once again, tapping into those emotions, being able to express our emotions no matter when these things happened. And maybe you don't have to speak them to the offender. Maybe you just keep this as a personal journey and you journal on this stuff and you say these things to a therapist, or you take that shit to your yoga mat and you set the intention to move this stuff out of your body, because there's the mental part of this and then there's the emotional expression. And anyone who knows my yogic journey and the reason I do yoga as part of my, this wholeness lifestyle that I think I'm living is because I was releasing a lot of things with my mental body, my spiritual body, connecting to angels and working with the angelic realm and working with, human guides to move me through this angelic process. But I was missing the body piece because our body physically needs to release things as well. The body remembers what the mind forgets. So it is important to move your body. And what that does is it dislodges a lot of these old emotions, especially if you're doing hip work and working with our goddesses. We've been doing a lot of hip work because all of our emotions are in our hips. But all of this work, we're releasing things. We're releasing things that are stuck in the body, and then we have to express them. This is how we release them. This is how we move them out. And expressing them could be in tears. Ashley Dye, a gorgeous holistic sexologist that I work with, she and I just did a entire grief retreat weekend, and we are packaging that as a module that we're going to host online so that people can witness this, anytime they're ready to move through a grief journey. And one of the most amazing things she said to me that she said to the retreatants was, our tears, when they're tears of grief, are actually different components. They're actually made up of different things. And I wish I knew specifically, but I was like scientific. I was having like a fangirl moment. But I can follow up on that. But this is an amazing thing. All of our tears that we cry, they're not always the same. Happy tears, tears of joy, tears of sadness, tears of grief. How we move through things. And, obviously, boys don't cry. So it's not an available expression for men. And again, I really feel like there's a transcendence out of this. We're moving into this feminine place where, yes, boys do cry, and they better cry. There's a lot of shit they need to release. And our women are being judged less for releasing and showing emotions and being emotional. And I think that that's this gorgeous movement, because at the end of the day, really what we're trying to do is just move through this earthly journey at our the highest optimal way. And we have to move through this baggage, this conditioning, and releasing the patriarchy. And I think that's part of the journey, is and expressing is part of that, is moving out of it And then again, by expressing ourselves, we're showing other people it's okay to cry. It's okay to speak your truth. It's okay to say when you like something, say when you don't like something. This is a huge lesson, even for my daughter. You don't owe anyone anything. If you don't want to do something, don't do it. Don't feel obligated to support a man or a boy or even your girlfriends if you are not comfortable with it, tapping into your truth. So this is, a huge piece of expression and why we want to, why expressing in our feminine is so important right now. So I talked a little bit about emotions, expressing our emotions, and again, doing baby steps, or huge steps, whatever you want to do, whatever you feel comfortable doing. But I often think that, speaking your truth is huge. And again, if this sounds a little scary, like you're going to scare somebody away, because sometimes when we step into our power, we do shake things up all around us, and people don't expect us to behave that way. So what happens is some people drop off. Some people are not interested in you and your full power, and that's okay. They will be one day when they're in their full power, because you have to imbibe it and live it and express it and share it and make it available to others. That's why we always are doing the inner work. But when you're shaking this stuff up, sometimes you're going to put people off, and they're going to be surprised that your boundaries are changing. They're going to be surprised that the way you're speaking is changing. And if they're supposed to be in your life, you guys will find it'll align itself. It'll all iron itself out. So take what you want and leave the rest, but speaking your truth is huge. And the more you do it, the easier it is. And that includes your emotional truth. So if you say, you know what, I am still angry about this thing that happened 2 years ago. I am angry about this thing that happened 2 years ago. You need to work that shit out. There is something that needs to be worked out. And as we speak about things, as we journal things, as we do things on the mat, all the different ways that we start to move these truths out of us, because all these things are happening in here, but here is where we express it. And it's not just your voice, it's all the different ways. Maybe if you love red lipstick, but you don't wear it because you think you'll look like a whore, or you think you'll look like you're trying to attract attention, this is a ridiculously small but huge thing. If you love wearing red lipstick, wear red lipstick. So Freya. And you shouldn't feel any kind of judgment or negligence because you're stepping out into your gorgeousness. You're stepping out into who you are. Because in fairness, anyone who judges you isn't there yet. They're just not there with you yet. They're not going to align on your higher plane journey. But people who are aligning on your higher plane journey and are ascending with you and transcending with you, they're going to be like, I love that. I'm going to wear blue lipstick because I have always wanted to wear blue lipstick. And I love the way I look in blue lipstick. And even, and again, small examples, but the more we speak our truth, the more we express ourselves, the more we're able to it becomes easier and easier. And then the bigger truths come out, the bigger truths come out, the bigger expressions come out. Like your life purpose work. You can't just come out one day and say, I speak to, this is my life purpose and this is what I'm doing. And you're still like, in this, wherever this world is where you haven't done any of the steps to get out. The baby steps will help you to move out. And again, I'm limiting you. Don't let me limit you. If you want to step out now fully, go ahead. If you want to work through, just start making little truths and you'll see that they get easier and easier. But again, when we speak about things, this is how we unpack things. So if you say, I'm angry, well, why are you angry? I'm angry because there was no resolution. I asked for an apology. I was insulted, and I never received an apology. And there was no acknowledgement that I was hurt. And I don't want to be a victim, but I don't want to be in this person's presence. I don't align with this person. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm constantly being attacked. My boundaries are starting to grow. And even though if something wasn't resolved and it's, 1 year later, 10 years later, 100 years later, it doesn't matter. It's still going to affect you in some way, shape, or form. And that's one of the most gorgeous things about the spiral modality. If you know about the spiral modality, this is a clearing of the 22 biggest emotions in our body. And if you want more information on that, just, drop me a message. But that's why I love the spiral, and that's why the spiral was life-changing for me, because it started to like open these old wounds, not from like my teenage years, not from college years, not from my early marriage years, but these were traumas and pieces of my life that happened in childhood through no fault of anyone's. I don't judge anyone. Conditionings, that cause this ripple effect, and they decide how I'm going to how I'm going to act and respond and live based on all these different situations. Even like being stressed to get A's all the time in school. If you subscribe to that, doing well in school, always being stressed, getting skinny, pulling your hair out, biting your nails, not sleeping at college, doing drugs at college to stay up at college, all the different ways that different things start to create patterns, destructive patterns in your life. So again, life isn't linear. Life, could be linear, but there's also that concept of everything's happening in the infinite now, and everything is associated. All of your life is associated. And then if you believe there's parallel lives and past lives and future lives, they're all happening simultaneously as well. So talking about emotional trauma from years ago is absolutely an available piece. So we unpack traumas. This is good for both men and women. And we're able to release and move through things. And it's not just about speaking. There's all the different ways that we talked about, but it's also about listening. So listening is, if the world is a reflection of who you are, seeing what's coming into you and contemplating it. So calling on Sige, being in that energy of the great first goddess, Gnostic goddess Sige, where we are silent and we're contemplating and we're listening and we're thinking about things. That's a huge part of expression, because that allows you to express pure truth. When you're receiving and when you're hearing, you're witnessing what the world is giving back to you. So, again, and there's a situation where I'm angry about something, and I've been angry about it for years, and I wasn't dealing with it. And now I am dealing with it. And when I look back at this, how did I call this into my life? Well, I had poor boundaries. I felt guilty about something, and I shouldn't have. But I didn't realize I did feel guilty about something. And I didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. So instead of putting up healthy boundaries, I allowed somebody to attack me for a long time. And nothing horrible, but it's something that does weigh heavily on me. And as I move through my different emotional clearing, and as I move through, expressing myself, this is coming up as an unacceptable, and it needs to be removed from my life. And that's hard, to rip things out at the root that are, years old. There's patterns that this other person has that he's completely in his power and comfortable zone by just, shitting all over me. And feels very victim-like, but my point is, this is my problem. This is my fault. Because and again, there's no fault. This is a whole life journey. But my boundaries were terrible. I was allowing people to come in and out and attack. And this is just one thing that stuck around, because you know what? Lessons that you need to learn, they stick around, man. They don't go anywhere. They get louder and louder and louder until you deal with them. So I have to deal with my boundaries and what I'm available for. And I'm not even mad at this person. I just know I'm angry. My anger was the emotion that I had to unpack to figure out why I was so angry. I'm not mad at this person. This has to do with me not having good boundaries. It's a little bit of a tangent. But again, expression. And feel free to express whatever you want to express. Doesn't, whenever, wherever, whoever, whatever, expressing your truth. And you'll face the repercussions of that. Don't worry if you're doing the wrong thing, because you'll find out. You'll figure it out. And nothing's wrong, nothing's right. And again, always tapping into that heart space, right? Because this is our truth, our eternal truth, this seed of our higher self. Sometimes I just put my hands on my heart and I check in to say, hey, is this really my truth? Do I need to speak this? And my heart screams yes or no at me. It is quick to answer. And again, that's a muscle that you can build. So a couple of ways that you can work on expressing yourself. And again, we talked a little bit about like small ways, small steps, like wearing red lipstick, wearing blue lipstick, wearing sweats, whatever it is how you want to show up in the world. chanting is a gorgeous way to work on this throat chakra. Now, chakras are wheels of energy. So the throat chakra is, each chakra has components to it that are, that help, that if you know the components of the chakras, it allows you to physically and energetically work this area in order to balance this area. So this is an area of speaking our truth. It's about hearing truth. It's about contemplation. So if we chant, those vibrations in our neck are just shaking off all the energetic blockages in our neck, and they're releasing those things to be processed. And that heals our throat chakra. So we heal it, it brightens the throat chakra, and it allows you to be more balanced in how you speak and how you receive, how you hear things. And if you're not a chanter, you can chant with malas, you can chant in Sanskrit, you can chant in Aramaic, you can chant in Latin, be careful. Or you can chant whatever your native language is so that you know what you're saying. Chanting also is a repetitive thing. So you can say, I am beautiful, I am beautiful, I am beautiful, over and over and over again until you really start to believe that and embody that, and feel comfortable that you're allowed to receive that. Singing, so you could sing. You could sing in the car. Singing in the car is a fantastic multitasking way to support your throat chakra and your expression. You can hum to yourself. Different ways of expression are showing yourself. And maybe taking an inventory of how you show up and how you're hiding yourself. So maybe, I don't wear red lipstick because it sounds so crazy, but I don't wear red lipstick because I have gorgeous lips and because I don't want to make people think I'm showing off my lips. That's actually a thought. It's actually a real thought. I don't want to wear this skin-tight outfit because my body is amazing and I don't want to make people nervous. Or I don't want to wear this skin-tight outfit because I hate my body. And think of the different ways that we're hiding ourselves from the world, and just baby steps. Start to express yourself. Start to move into that piece. And again, remember that masculine and feminine. Sometimes, and I come back to masculine and feminine because the masculine is much more acceptable than the feminine, in my opinion and in my experience. So often, you want to find a little bit of balance. So sometimes we don't express ourselves because we don't want to be that dreaded feminine, that dreaded dark feminine. And we want to be more masculine. So maybe we show up, and just take even my work. So my work, tapping into my intuition, talking to my angels, doing this, all the woo-woo things that I'm doing. That's not as acceptable as how amazing I am as a programming manager. Just not as acceptable, just not as prized, just not as celebrated. But I hate being a programming manager. I hate it. So, this was a piece where I wasn't expressing myself. And I loved my job and I loved my coworkers and I loved my employers. But that wasn't the job for me. So I was continuing to show up to a world that I thought I was supposed to show up to. Every single day, showing up. And I was burying my true expression, who I really was, underneath this blanket of, oh, this is how the world wants you to look. And what a tricky thing, right? Because we just talked about the world being a mirror, and we just talked about the world giving you information, but there's also all that conditioning, all that community, judgment that comes in as well. So a lot of this comes back to silence, tapping into that silence, tapping into that heart space, and really figuring out how to pull these pieces apart. And it's a hard thing to show up in integrity and in the honesty of who you are. So expressing yourself, taking an inventory. What am I doing that's not really for me? What do I daydream about? That's a huge question. What do I daydream about? Like when I'm passing out in my clothes, on the couch, because I'm a single mom and I'm protecting my two kids, one in this bedroom, one in that bedroom, and I'm scared to death that somebody's going to break in. But you're still working till 1 or 2 in the morning. So, what do you daydream about? What is it you want? And knowing that you don't have to live this linear, school, college, career, death. And, you're able to daydream and you're able to step into your dreams. That's something that's truly available. And I know it sounds hokey and follow your dreams, that kind of stuff, but that is so unbelievably true. It is so unbelievably true. it is available to you. Your daydreams are 100% available to you. And there's all this manifestation work. And part of that is chanting. Chanting, I am a goddess. Saying it over and over and over again, and believing it and moving in that direction. And that's how you become a goddess. You carry yourself like a goddess. You have great boundaries like a goddess. You speak your truth like a goddess. And you walk away and you don't care about the repercussions. So very Freya. This is who I am. I don't care if you like it or not. I love you either way, and I'm moving on. I'm moving on. So taking inventory of where you're expressing yourself and where you're not expressing yourself. Use your own words to tell your story. That's another big piece. So a lot of times I felt like the things I was saying weren't enough because they were from me, and I didn't have enough worthiness to witness that my truth was just as important as anybody else's truth. So I would find quotes from the Dalai Lama, or whose truth is gorgeous. I feel like I'm always on par when we're on par. But, using your words, speaking your truth, writing it down, exposing yourself, stepping out. That's a really amazing way to start to trust your words. And it's a really amazing way too, again, speaking your truth. No one's going to argue with the Dalai Lama, but people are going to argue with me because I am not the Dalai Lama. But that's still my truth. It's still it's the core, the crux of who I am. So when I speak my truth, there are people who align with me, and then there are people who don't align with me. And God, gorgeous. All things gorgeous, because I honor your story, I honor your story, I honor everybody's story. And I don't align with everybody's story. So we start to morph into this space where we're with our soul tribe, the people that we're supposed to be with, where we can celebrate each other and celebrate each other's mission and story. And everybody has a different truth. Everyone has a different purpose. So speaking your truth allows you to really find your tribe, and it allows you to really start to express and step into who you are. And the deeper you move into your truths, the deeper truths that you start to unlock. And contemplate your words. So, Sige, gorgeous feminine advice. Being in silence, contemplating your words. Are you really saying what you want to say? Is this what you want to say? And, what are words? That's a whole journey. But really making that space so that you're saying only what you need to say and what you're supposed to say, what you want to say. And check your lies, your little white lies. What conditioning tells you that you should not be truthful, and how are telling white lies? And again, if we're stepping into telling our truth and we're doing little truths here and there, it'll completely undo it if you continue to do these little untruths left and right. So it's important to really check yourself. And an easy way that I stop lying is, like, if somebody invites me to go out, I just say I don't want to go out. I'm just not in the mood. I don't want to do anything. I want to stay here on my couch. I want to hermit. I need to be by myself. I need to be quiet. And I don't need any other excuse. I can just say I'm not coming. That's it. It's very simple. There's no need for a lie. There's no need for an excuse. There's no need to show up and be miserable. If you don't want to do something, you don't do it. And again, your tribe will be like, cool, I get it. I get it. It's fine. No big deal. And then again, this is all about speaking your truth and stepping into your truth. You'll start to witness who your soul aligned with, rather than who has been part of your journey and is a lesson and a blessing and a love, but might not be soul aligned for this part of the journey. So you start to really figure out who you are. So chanting, singing, speaking, a yoga class with a lot of throat openers, so fish pose, camel, that's a big heart opener, but it could be a neck opener. And I have cervical issues, so a lot of times, little things, just focusing on your neck, you don't need to be dramatic about it. You don't need to do headstand, which is working your crown anyway. But even when you do like warrior two, really focusing on where you're turning, focusing on the full expression, the full breath of your body. Shoulder stand, plow, any of those that are opening up this neck. And even just neck rolls, getting a neck massage, and listening. So guided meditations are a great way to really start tapping into things. And if you do meditations, silent meditations, maybe you can meditate outside. and listen to sounds in nature. So you're receiving and you're expressing. And I find, as far as receiving goes, our messages from our angels often come, especially those messages that we're, ignoring. They usually come in the form of a stranger speaking. So if you overhear a conversation clear as day and somebody said something that means something to you, that 100% is an angel speaking to you. That 100% is an ascended master, an angel, or a guide speaking to you through the human voice, the human expression of somebody else. So take that, and that's part of listening, being available for those types of messages. I so love this community. I so love being able to express my truth. If you guys have any feedback or any other amazing ways that you can, start to open your third chakra, I would love to hear about those. Just pop a comment here, and any subscriptions are gorgeous. I'm hopefully doing free content every week for the rest of my life. This is, for now, it's my expression journey now. So if you subscribe, you'll get all of this free weekly content, and thank you so much.